Hello and welcome to this short introduction to the open calls we're having within the Polyrural Plus research project. We are anticipating a series of 4 open calls. So if you are an innovator with some interesting proposals, ideas, new methodologies, technologies, and strategies for rural-urban development, then you're the right person we are looking for. And please dive deeply with me into what our pilot is expecting to achieve. There are 2 partners participating in the pilot activities in Slovakia. One is the Slovak University of Agriculture based in Nitra, which was well established back in 1952. That is the organization that I represent. And the other partner is much younger. It is the Slovak Rural Youth Parliament, which came into being in 2019 and brings the lovely sunshine in its logo to our pilot. And just to shortly introduce both partners, our university is a public one that is consistently rated in the top group for the high quality of its teaching and research in Slovak Republic, with a great emphasis on embracing and responding to new information and communication technology opportunities. On the other hand, Slovak Rural Youth Parliament is a civil society organization, a dynamic platform for youth from all over Slovakia where they meet, discuss and collaborate on innovations and strengthening of rural communities. Its vision is to create an environment where young leaders shape rural life and influence decision-making processes. The Slovak pilot is unique in that sense that it covers the territory of the whole country. As a predominantly rural country, the rural population representing 38% of the total population, while in the EU it's only 19%, Slovakia lacks a vision, document or a strategy specifically dedicated to rural areas. Therefore, during the previous Polyrural project, the mission-oriented foresight process was used to develop the vision for more attractive rural areas, with the aim to make the rural areas stronger, sustainable, resilient and prosperous, alongside the EU long-term vision for rural areas that has been developed at the same time. The overall goal is to have the vision enshrined in the constitutional law in order to provide long-term stability, continuity, clarity and clear strategic direction for Slovak rural areas, agriculture and rural economy as such, and to pave the way for a sustainable future for all of us. In this way, the document will be binding until its next update, regardless of government changes, and thus providing some certainty. It will guide and support the decision makers and help to avoid repeated mistakes of the past and constant changes in the priorities by individual ministries, sometimes even several times during one government term. After the endorsement of the vision by stakeholders and actors at the conference in December 2021, the new round of broader stakeholder consultations and advocacy processes started at the end of the Polyrural project cycle, and the vision was officially presented to the decision makers in October 2022 at the National Council or the Parliament of the Slovak Republic. And since then, several rounds of consultations took place and a series of joint conferences with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development started in 2023. So far, we had 3 joint conferences in that year, in February in Middle Slovakia, in June Western Slovakia, and October in Eastern Slovakia, so covering the whole territory of the country. The next one followed in the beginning of this year, in April, when the Polyrural Plus project was already running, And what is the aim of these conferences? It's to bring together people at different levels, so meaning stepping out of silos and regularly around one common goal, which is the vision of more attractive rural areas and allow a better understanding of different realities and perspectives, and also improve mutual understanding and cooperation, and also develop creative and innovative new solutions. It introduced a practice of constant, respectful, and timely exchange on a regular basis in both directions, from the bottom up and also from the top down. We also established a monitoring committee at the end of the Polyrural project that had held regular meetings to prepare and organize these consultations. And we also participated in many activities of the Rural Pact that has been created at the EU level to implement the EU long-term vision for rural areas. And we are happy to continue to support these activities. So for us, the vision for more attractive rural areas represents a new push for making a meaningful difference and hope for revitalization of the rural areas. And as a Polyrural project output served as an input document into broader consultation processes, and we still wish to continue in this endeavor. In terms of digital solution, we will be focusing the activities on developing digital innovation hub, which in our view plays a key role in agri-food sector in the area of support of digital transformation and innovations. The possible tasks here include the following. The first is the digital transformation. It means support in implementation of digital technologies and processes in the whole agri-food value chain. The second is focused on sustainability, which means the support for sustainable agriculture and food industry using technologies which decrease the environmental impact. Third area is focused on innovation and research, where we can be as intermediaries for companies, research institutes, and technological societies, facilitating cooperation and know-how exchange. Fourth area is startups support. Innovations and research require creating an environment conducive for startup companies. And fifth one is training and education for employees in the agri-food chain to improve their digital skills and enable efficient use of new technologies. And the sixth area is data sharing and standardization between various players in the agri-food chain. So what are our expectations in terms of how can you support us on reaching our goals and addressing the challenges in our project? We're looking for those that could help us enhance cooperation among the interested stakeholders and actors, that can also support us in establishing a cross-sectoral governmental platform to break the silos involving various interested stakeholders and actors. Furthermore, facilitation of the national contribution to the EU Rural Pact to make our rural communities stronger, more prosperous, resilient, and connected by 2040. And initiate constitutional and administrative reform to bring the vision to reality. We have also identified additional challenges where we are looking for support. As I already said, there's an increased move of people from urban to rural areas. Over the past 20 years, the number of people living in the rural areas increased by 240,000, while 160,000 people disappeared from cities looking for better quality of life, offering a calmer environment, clean air, nature, and less stress, different lifestyle, lower housing and living costs. So then we're also looking for someone that will help us use the potential of an increased number of people with secondary, vocational, and apprenticeship education in the rural areas for development of rural areas and its economies. We would like to evaluate national legislation and its potential for simplification. This is also a big task. Also, we would like to evaluate various partial policies of different ministries that have an impact on rural areas, another enormous task. We would like to contribute to the AKIS, Automized Knowledge and Agricultural Knowledge and Information System Development. We would like to tap into new sources of funding that could be available for rural areas. Also look into expanding the governance and to make some plans for net zero by 2050. And as I mentioned, the long-term vision for rural areas by 2040. And we also have a goal of 30% reduction of emissions by 2030 in agriculture and food sectors. So these are all very interesting areas that have not yet been fully embraced. And for example, particular focus for us would be on organic farming. We have a target of 25% of agricultural land. Another would be soil nutrition loss. There's a target of 50% reduction. Use of fertilizers, their target is 20% reduction. Use of chemical pesticides, where the target is 30% reductions. Or use of hazardous pesticides, where the target is even more ambitious by 50% reduction. And decline of pollinators is reversed. It's one of the goals as well, and the target is there that 30% of species and habitats are returned. We would like to also identify cities and villages with net zero goals and support them in developing local strategies, and facilitate our national contribution to the Rural Pact. We've considered that as an essential part of our work. And also another area is facilitate contribution to the national consultations on the new CAP and structural funds after 2027, after the current finance period. So I believe that the challenges that have been identified in the polyrural projects are still valid, are still on the table, and we can explore further those as well. There were many that we have identified at that time, and for example, consider agriculture and rural areas as a strategic sector at the national level, achieve stability and continuity in support and strategic mission-oriented thinking, improve coordination among different ministries, increase the efficiency of funds use, improve technical and professional capacities, establish functioning consultation mechanisms. And we wanted to use pandemic as a driver for restart of our rural areas, and establish permanent foresight activities and settle long-lasting land reform. So we believe that all these challenges are interconnected and mutually supporting each other. There are many of them, of course, and at the EU level there are many more, like the contribution to the new European Bauhaus, and other EU high-level policies like net zero, Fit for 55, EU missions, just transitions, just name it. There are so many of them, and there's just one rural areas, very often with one person in charge of one village. So how to embrace all these need for better urban-rural policy coordination and cooperation, and increasing stakeholders' engagement, taking them on board and taking their views more seriously. and broaden the consultation processes and make it an established practice. In the Polyrural project, we also looked at the analysis of the impact of the COVID pandemic that it had on the rural areas. And there were some interesting findings back in 2021, particularly the increased number of people moving from urban to rural areas. And we believe that there is a need to look deeper into this to understand the change. So many challenges to address, and broader and more experienced the team, the better for us to bring the transformational change on the ground. My name is Marieta Okenkova. I work as the researcher at the Slovak University of Agriculture, and I am the contact person for these open calls. So please do not hesitate to contact me and ask any further questions or clarifications you might need. And I highly recommend, beside the Polyrural Plus web page, to consult also the one that we have developed in the Slovak language during the previous cycle of the Polyrural project. It reads www.atraktívnyvidiek.sk. To conclude, the whole name of the project is an invitation, or as a food for thought, to think about how you can contribute with your experience, expertise, and the knowledge to fostering sustainable, balanced, equitable, place-based, and inclusive development of rural-urban communities. Very much looking forward to your suggestions, and thank you very much for your attention. Have a lovely day.